everybody. Hello, Internet. Hello, locals. We are only 17 minutes late because we had to install Python and some tools to this laptop that it came as a slight surprise. But anyway, we are here.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you? Who are you? Why are you here?
Who the hell are you?
I'm Grendel of Byterapers. Who the hell are you?
I remember you. My name is Miha Rinne, and I am the co-creator of Undead. The other co-creator, Pekka, Kleimola, who is a programmer, he didn't feel like coming up here, but he is watching this on the Twitch stream, and he said that the last presentation was very interesting to him. It was also to me. Good stuff.
Good stuff. And you was now able to look upwards to a legend, because you are not a legend. Or are you? Have you done something in your life?
I've done some bits and pieces. So I've done a little bit of games, and I've done a little bit of comics, and I've done a little bit of animated TV series and music videos and stuff.
For those who don't know, this dude here, he is not the originals. But he's the second generation of Finnish game developers from the Bloodhouse
era. The first one
era.
who had sense to ask for a monthly salary.
Yes. The first generation was the really early C64 game devs, but second generation is him. Absolutely. Okay, you are the first one of the second generation. I will point you because it's rude, and you are a rude person.
Aye.
Yeah. But he has done a lot of games, or he has worked in a lot of companies. He has worked in Finnish companies, in UK companies, I don't know what other companies. Tell a little bit about your history.
Okay. The first time I worked in the game industry was in 1994 for a company called Terramark. I was hired to work as a graphics artist on Elfmania Datadisk, but it got cancelled, and then I worked with Stavros Vasolas on his car game project called PID, which also got cancelled. And after that, Housemarque was formed, and I worked as a graphic artist on Benjamin and the Alien Incident. But my first game project was in 1990, first game project with a programmer, and that is Undead. That is what I'm still doing here.
So you've been doing this for 22 years?
30 years,
30?
I think. 30 years. So the years go by, Jukka. You may not have noticed it, but so the years go by faster
so
when
fastly.
you get older.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've done little bits and pieces. Then I went to UK, worked at Probe Entertainment just when it was bought by Acclaim, and
happy times.
Happy times, lots of very, very, very interesting times. It was a bit like a Wild West back then, but the people were very colorful. And then I worked on other places, and I went back to Housemarque and worked on a couple of projects. Then I tried a comic book artist career, which carried for a few years, and then I went back to Housemarque, and then I went to do comics again, and after that, for the last 8 years, I've been doing freelancing work for game companies. And then last year, we started to work on Undead with Pekka as, kind of a leisure game project.
And for the local people here, okay, also for the audience, we are trying not to tell about the harsh realities of the games industry here now on live stream.
What are you talking about?
The real realities. But afterwards, when we are not in the stream, give him beer or provoke him, and he will tell everything. It will take only a few hours of non-stop rambling.
Because this is a public presentation, and it has been streamed, and it's been seen by the people who work in game industry. I'm only going to say publicly that everything has been fantastic. Everybody has been really absolutely lovely to work with. It's been a true blessing for 30 years, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
You know, I will clip this bit out of the recording and put it on YouTube.
Well, of course. And you're going to replace it with my drunken rage at 2 a.m.
Absolutely. Okay. We are now talking about a game called Undead. And this thing kind of started 2 years ago. Okay, the game started ages ago, but you found a game design document some 2 years ago.
Well, yeah, a game design document. So basically, it was something I did when I was 16. I mean, I just started high school, and Sami Salonen, TMB, who is here, he introduced me to Pekka, who was called this Genenic Half Guy. And he said that Pekka wants to do a game with you. And I had the idea. Now, the thing here is that when you are 16, your game design is very different than when it is when you have been working in a game. The one thing that you have to take home is it's very earnest. There's nothing calculated about it. It's just that I saw this cool arcade game and I want to do this cool arcade game at Commodore 64. And I want to do all the cool stuff that I saw in that arcade game. So there was like nothing that was really like being like a planned or calculated or thought about, like no thinking, can you actually do this? Will it actually work as a game? How long it would take to make? And do we have resources for this? Nothing like that. And actually the reception for this was so overwhelmingly positive, especially after I shared the video of the game that was unearthed, because I found the original game discs and the source code back in 2006 from my and old Pekka's old files. And I told about this to Frank Gasking, who runs the games.weren't.com. And he got kind of excited, had put a page up about it, and then I was contacted by somebody who was on Triad, and they asked if they could salvage our game. Well, Pekka's code, his old code was such a spaghetti that he knows it himself too, he doesn't mind me saying this, that they actually only made some kind of demo preview which shows the graphics, and then you just get to play the first level as it is, because we did a one playable level with all the features in. And that demo was uploaded to games.weren't.com, and then I made a YouTube recording out of that demo. And after that, because people are usually too lazy to actually download the actual disk file from the games.weren't.com and then test it out, so most of the people still weren't aware what Undead is. But then when they saw the YouTube video, they were like, oh wow, are you going to finish this? This is going to be great. Yeah, I can
Let's see if we can
if I can put it here.
Get it
if
here.
There is someone who hasn't, probably a lot of people who haven't seen it.
There's too many people awake now here eating the bandwidth, but let's see if it works.
We can try.
We can try. It took a few moments.
Oh, yeah, here it is.
Oh, yes. Okay, can we have the screen?
Yes.
In a moment, after the adverts.
And here is the advertisement.
Advertisements!
Remember to brush your teeth! You will look just like this woman when you brush your teeth.
So did you brush your teeth this morning?
Yes, I even brought my teeth brush with me.
You are staying
You can borrow it if
Okay,
you want.
here we have
That's
intro, yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, I can actually skip this a little bit. No, it's actually starting.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are the old graphics I did for the demo. Like this was supposed to be the background of a boss level, which was over there. This was the main character, like the main character graphic card. All this was made when I was like 16 or 17, and there was the typical plot where you have to go to rescue somebody for some reason, and there was actually that he wakes up in some kind of capsule, doesn't remember anything. I used that kind of for the plot as a plot device, because then you don't have to wear the player down with the exposition.
Yeah.
You don't have to explain what's happening because the player character doesn't know himself. So this was just zombies, and then you're gonna go and screw them up. The game was, this was actually the team. I am in the middle. I used to have this kind of long hair. Pekka is on the left, and Sami is on the right simply because he's our friend.
Yeah.
I was hugely inspired by some movies like John Carpenter's Return, Escape from New York, and Prince of Darkness. And in the Prince of Darkness, you saw Alice Cooper playing a homeless schizophrenic. And I saw Alice Cooper as a homeless schizophrenic. I want to be like that when I grow up. And I bought a similar coat and I had a similar cap. I had a similar long hair and I strutted loud like this on the street. And I said, now I'm like Alice Cooper in a Prince of Darkness. And this was supposed to be the main bad guy in this game as well. He was called Rotterminator. So
Did you listen metal?
yes, very much. And these were actually ripped off from Splatterhouse. Most of the game mechanics were ripped off from Splatterhouse because I was a huge Splatter movie fan. I liked movies like Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead as well. So basically it was just like an amalgam of everything I thought was cool at the time and then I just ripped it off. The funny thing is actually that just ripping off everything is actually quite common in game industry, even in these days. They just like express it differently. They don't call it ripping off. This is the actual demo. We managed to get it work. The sprites were done with Gary Kitchen's Game Maker, which means I had to use joystick to bet them. What? Oh yes. Yeah.
Whoa!
Yeah. This was the main reason why I wanted to make this game.
Cut off the heads.
Yeah, I just wanted a lot of violence, a lot of enemies on the screen, and as much splatter as you can do. That was the sole reason, basically. Then also you can use a zombie as a wielding weapon.
Yeah.
So you can hit zombies with other zombies if you catch them, and you can throw them. And we managed to get all this work. Pekka made it all work. And also the notable thing about the background, it doesn't look like it, but it's a bitmap. It's a scrolling bitmap that's been streamed from a disk drive. The routine was made by Sami Louko Proton. We visited Sami Louko with Pekka at Lahti, and he did it in one night, that disk routine, and it worked. And we used it in a game.
Oh.
So the thing is that because you can only fit like 1/2 of a screen on a bitmap on the top of all the animation, this has over 200 frames of animation. So we could only have a half a screen, a bitmap, so it was streamed. It was very common back in the day that if you had some cool new routine or technical gimmick, it justified making a game around it. So these days you don't do that anymore because everybody's using like a Unreal Engine or Unity or stuff like that. So, but yeah, that's pretty much what we had back in the day. Yeah, that was my scene nickname, Hawkeye CIA. A Bad Taste because I was a religiously big Bad Taste fan also back in the day. I used to watch it every day before going to school, just the best bits of it. So
I was kind of expecting that if you should see a lawn mower here and then grab the lawn mower and
that would be nice. So yeah, basically that was the old demo from 1990-1992, and it was actually still remains my favorite game project because it was so amateurish. It didn't have any of the package that the game industry project has because when you walk in on a game industry, it's nothing at all like when you're doing a hobby project because there are so many things you have to mind of. First of all, it's very likely that you're not going to be working on your own game. You're just an asset to somebody else. And it's very rare that you even get to do things the way you want to do because you may have a superior who has a very clear guidelines on how you have to do the things you have to do. And even then there's like multiple things you have to mind of. So when you are working on your own hobby game, you can do the things your way as the way you see are the best things to do. And even if you fail, the failure is your own and you learn from it. You cannot blame anybody else on it. So in that way, it was the most positive experience I ever had. I don't mean to imply that any other experience have ever been negative, but because everything is absolutely fantastic in game industry.
Yes.
Like you can read from LinkedIn every day. but actually, it did have a really deep impact, this game, for me, because I used to dream about playing the finished game for years and years and years. And whenever I talk to Pekka through the years, I always like, hey, what about if we start making Undead again someday? And Pekka was hesitant.
Oh,
I understand him because the way I designed the game was like, it wasn't like, can you do this or is this doable? Or said, I want this and I want this and I want this. And Pekka was like,
you are the designer, he is the coder. The problem of finding a solution is up to him.
Yeah. But he managed to do everything I wanted. But the thing is that I'm not a programmer myself, but I've been listening to programmers for 3 decades. So I pretty much know what their usual pet peeves are. And the thing was, this was like that because he was also a teenager when he wrote this code. The code wasn't organized in any way at all. Everybody who's been programming knows what I mean with this. So if you wanted to iterate something, you will, in the worst case, you just have to rewrite everything. And when the code gets really sprawl, long, huge spaghetti, it gets like really hard to change anything, to add anything. So he just didn't feel like going for it. But when we had this really good response on internet for the original game design and the YouTube video, Pekka actually thought that he would actually like to do it, but he's going to do it in a different way now because now he has been programming for 30 years.
Yeah.
So, and I was like that we could just like, we don't have to add anything or like, we can just like add the rest of the graphics, but he was it, no, he can reprogram everything, but he's going to make tools that going to make life easier. So he's going to, of course, he's going to refactor the code, but he's going to make a graphics tools, level tools, enemy tools, so all the content will be made by tools. And this is what we have been doing so far. We have only been doing tools. So Pekka, he's actually making more tools than he lets me know. I only found out like last week that he has wrote his own compiler, his own debugger, and he's on the top of the file packers and stuff like that he's made. And we didn't work on this on the spring. We worked this on the last year, and then we started again on the August. And from August to this day, we have been working on the graphics and the animation editor.
Mind-blowing stuff. That's also mind-blowing detail is that you actually managed to make a playable or working demo back then. That's more than most hobby projects, teenage hobby projects.
I think there was a huge benefit of the fact that we didn't know it was possible.
Yeah.
But yes, of course, we planned a lot. There's like a lot of tricks were done. For example, like if you have any character-based game, my biggest pet peeve with any character-based games on 8-bit machine is like that they don't feel like characters, they feel like moving blocks. And this is because the sprites always had to fit inside a very narrow squares. So, but I say that like I want the enemies, I don't want them to die in a puff of smoke or just like drop down like this. I want them to fall down. But the thing is that the Commodore 64 has an 8 sprite limit horizontally. So what we did, I suggested that, you can multiply the sprite. And if the animation is fast, you can just multiply some of the frames. And during animation, and if it happens fast, no one's going to spot the difference. I was right, you don't spot the difference. That it's multiplied sprite in the middle of the animation. And also for the fact that I wanted you to be able to switch weapons and wield them. The weapons don't fit inside the tube times 2 sprite square. So it has to be an additional sprite on the top of that. But so Game Maker didn't allow to have like sprites on the top of sprites. So Pekka had to type them in by code, frame by frame. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff that Pekka has just to type in. And because of this, it was very heavy. And now we have this graphic editor where you can just do all of this inside the editor, so you don't have to bother the programmer with it.
How or why did the project originally fade away?
I think Pekka went to army and...
the usual.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have fast forwarded a lot here, but let's go back to the moment that you posted the game design document and you got awesome feedback. And then it was, let's see, there is, in August 21, you commented that Pekka was so heart-warmed by all the warm reception in the internet about the game design document and the things you published. Then you started really thinking to make it again.
Yeah. That's when he came to me and said that I'm just gonna make you the tools that enable you to make the game you want. Which was, in my opinion, a very right decision to make, because this is actually that makes this project manageable. Except that it hasn't been so difficult for us now than it was when we were teenagers, because we have more experience now.
You know what to do. And tools, as you saw in the previous presentation, Cadaver has lots of modern tools to use.
Yep, good stuff.
Yeah, and I was looking at the tools. That these are really, really nice things to have, mouse driven and everything, not like that joystick things.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, we did have one little thing made for the backgrounds back in the day. I used Art Studio for making the bitmap graphics, but because it was too painful to make backgrounds on a joystick, we just hacked it, so Pekka hacked it so that it can be used with Amiga's mouse.
Yes.
I think got that hacked version on the disk somewhere. But anyway, these days it doesn't matter because you can have the tools on PC and they can be so much better.
You've been talking so much about the tools that you have to show us something.
Yeah, I was actually hesitant to come to ZOOparty originally when I was asked, because I felt we are not going to be able to show the game, and if we are not going to be able to show the game, do we have anything worth showing at all? But then we got the tool working on a such level that I was thinking that we might be able to show the animation tool, and why anybody should care about our animation tool is that after the game is finished, we're gonna release the animation tool for everybody to use if they want to use it.
Okay.
So, yeah, I can show you the Necromancer, the little bit I got here. Is this on the screen now?
Yes.
Okay.
Necromancer.
Necromancer, yeah.
That's the tool's name.
Yeah, because
So
you use it to raise the dead.
Yeah.
You animate them. So. Anyway, here is a sequence. Here is a sequence that is made with this editor. I made this animation just last night, so I have something that is demo worthy of showing. But it's basically the same axe chopping, but here is done with our current graphics. And if I start look at this more closely, is that here we got like the file view or this asset view. And if you select something from here, you get the properties for the asset, whether it's a sprite or it's a background or whether it's an animation when it has a frame rate or frame count. I still should mention that this is going to change this tool a lot. And when you have an animation, you have layers, we call them actors. Here the level screen is on actor 1. You can change the screens here if you want. The actor 2 is for the animation, and the animation is actually because you can nest animations inside animations. So I already have another scene where I used the separate axe on this character. So now I took the finished animation, I made it as an actor 2. Then I have the actor 3, which is the, okay, so this is the actual axe put on the top of this thing. So what we got here is that I have put coordinates on the axe for each frame where I want the axe to be. So that's the way I'm gonna place it with this the main character. And here is for the zombie, these empty things, empty sarake, means that sometimes you need to repeat frames. because the best results come when you have a variable frame rate. So sometimes you hold one frame and sometimes you go really quickly with some frames. So this is what has been done with here. So the actor 5 is for the flying head. So the whole head flying here is done by me just by using these coordinates.
Beautiful.
And then I'm also using one X scale sprite. So here, this is an X scale sprite. So it's shown before 2. So here it's been marked that it's an X expanded. And the last one, it changed the palette because at the last frame, when it's dead, it's been printed into the bitmap. So to avoid color crash, we'll use the same color as the background. And I'll be trying to use more or less the same 3 colors for the area where the dead body is. So we don't get any problem with the colors. So, yeah, there's like a small example of what we can do. There are also other things you can do. I can show you the backgrounds of the level chained together. There's a level join test. So, okay, so this is the level 1 backgrounds. Somebody could argue that it's still crazy to do graphics by bitmap because you have to spend so much time drawing and you're going to have to repeat like elements of the level anyway. But the one very important thing about this game is that I want this to be like an arcade game, like an old 80s arcade game, which are usually very short. It takes something like a half an hour to complete them or shorter time. And the replayability comes from the fact that you find new ways to score. So for this purpose, it actually suits me to have like a short levels with a lot of detail. So here is the first level background. This is not the final version of it. I'm going to have more detail over it. Now, this was originally, these were made in multi-paint, but I changed them together here so I can also draw elements that go across the screens. There's also going to be a lot of animations in the background because we have this kind of dynamic encounters that if you dispose the enemy quickly and the screen is free, you can get like enemies jumping out from the background or emerging from the background. And I can just easily do them on the Necromancer as animated layers, and they will be activated. And another very important thing to take home here is that we are not going to make this a disc game anymore. This is going to be a cartridge game. And when it's a cartridge game, it actually means that we can stream content from the cartridge. Yeah. We can stream the animation. And when we can stream animation and the game is very linear, we actually know that when the streaming happens, so we can control so that it doesn't overflow the memory. So we can make a much more animation than usually, much more features, just as much features as we can fit on the cartridge. I'm showing you here. Oh, that was just the walk animation. This is just a sprite editor, it's just a common sprite editor that is on here. I had here also the axe. Oh, here's the scene. Okay. Here was the first thing I tested out with the Necromancer. This was very slow to do actually because it kept crashing all the time, which is normal when you start a new tool. But yeah, basically I've been trying to improve the animation as much as possible for this new one and also increasing contrast and stuff like for the graphics. Here's some. Let's grab the zombie and throw it. Yeah, here we see quite a lot of the X-expanded sprites. But the cool thing is that now I have the control of the actual animated trajectory, so I can make it look much more natural and stuff like that. Yeah, and this still has like a lot of quality of life improvements that needs to be done, obviously. But it's completely normal. It's just what you simply get when you are like starting something for over And I just need to test it, and I have like a feature request for Pekka, and then he does those things. And here's just a basic punch. This is made just to match the old game, because at this point we were still discussing that should we make a reskinned demo for the ZOOparty, so that we took the old demo from 1990 and then we just switched it with the new graphics. But it was a good thing to try out, because when Pekka looked deeper into it, he noticed that his old code, there was no animation data.
Okay.
All the animation was embedded into the code. So if you wanted to change any animation, you have to rewrite all the code anyway. And because it's such a spaghetti, it's just like, okay, let's forget it because we're going to redesign everything anyway. So, and when it comes to, I'll show you also some animations that I've done. At this moment, we had a sprite pad and koala pointer import here. And a projects export. Here is some of the animations I've done. John Fall, untitled here. Where are you? Yeah. Okay. I'm just showing it simply because I felt these animations were rather successful on what I was trying to do. It's the new dev animation. So here, by holding some of the frames, I was managed to get the kind of like a dynamic feeling into it, which I wanted. I also used a lot of Street Fighter 3 frames and studied them for reference. I noticed that these guys, they do really a lot of like trickery with holding frames. Like some frames can appear really quickly. For example, there's like a 1 millisecond stretch for fist punching. And it gives a lot of like a dynamic impact. Somebody was looking at my punch animation on the internet and asking that, why does that arm overstretch in one frame? It's because it looks more alive. It's just a normal animation squash, stretch, like stuff. There's nothing more special than that. It's like Disney animators used to do it all the time, but you didn't notice it when the animation wasn't the movement. Actually, the funny thing is that it's still being used in some of the best 3D animation, but you won't notice it when it's done well. For example, like some of the Overwatch 3D animations for the scenes, they have like a really crazy scratchy where the characters get completely deformed between the frames, but you'll never see it because it goes so quickly. It just makes the motion look more believable or more alive. So, do I get this to work? Or not? I don't get it to work, that's syndrome. And it doesn't matter, you get the idea anyway. So, how much do we have time left? We have 10 minutes left. I guess if you have something you want to add, or if we move to questions.
To the online audience, if you have questions, put them on Twitch about now, so we can see the questions in time, because there is a lag. And then a few other things. I understood that this game has an age limit.
Yeah, well, I don't recommend anybody who's under 40 to play this, because this is a very much set in a certain time and nostalgia value. When I was thinking about remaking this game, I was thinking about the story and the characters, how silly they are, because I was a teenager when I wrote it, and I was trying to rethink it. And what I actually found out was that if I try to rethink it with any modern sensibilities, I just spoil the fun out of it. It doesn't feel good or interesting to me anymore. And they actually decided that I want to keep the characters and the story and the setting exactly as it was when I conceived it, because it's very much stuck in its time when best movies in the world were Escape from New York and Prince of Darkness and Dawn of the Dead and best gory games were Splatterhouse and stuff like that. It kind of lives and breathes on those things. So it's only the technical execution that will be updated. You can call this like polishing of third. As this paraphrase, first time I heard it, when I heard that when Stanley Kubrick was, isn't he full of himself? He's quoting fucking Stanley Kubrick when he's talking about himself. When he was editing 2001, somebody came behind his back and said, you can't polish a turd, you know. Stanley was just like, you can if you freeze it. So we are freezing the turd so it will stay shiny. And then we just like execute it in the best way possible. Hopefully it will get just as satisfying release.
So Commodore 64 cartridge game, the release date is?
Oh, I don't know, because this is a hobby project. Yeah. I mean, every time me and Pekka sit down and do this, it moves on rather quickly. We don't have really any problems, but we also have a life and we have other things we need to attend to, so we don't know how long this will take. Another thing is that I want this to be as good a game as I can make it. So it still has the limits. The cartridge we're going to use is going to have a 512 kilo limit with the saving feature. And this is actually good that it has limits, because when you have limits, you are forced to focus on what is essentially important to this game. Now, what is essentially important to this game is that you get to see a gory death animation. So it's not really like a game in that context. I want this to be like an arcade game, like Splatterhouse, but made on Commodore 64 and made perfectly. So, and we are actually planning to make a coin-up cabinet out of this. Tony Caven has promised to wire a Commodore 64 inside an arcade cabinet. I will make the artwork and we will donate it to Finnish Game Museum as a proof of the oldest game project in Finland that is still being made.
Well, let's see if we will place it to the museum's arcade room, or if we will find a slot elsewhere. Time will tell, but it will be awesome, I think. I think it's now a good moment for audience questions. Any questions over there? Doesn't seem to be any questions. Let's give them a moment. Mikron, do you have Twitch open? Is there any questions? Because he stole my laptop. I can't see Twitch. No questions 2 minutes ago. Can you please, pretty please, check now? No? Does somebody have Twitch open here? We are now checking if there are any online questions.
Maybe they all were like, what the hell did I just hear it?
But doesn't seem to be any. Any local questions?
I need my reading glasses because I'm old.
For the remote audience, I have to. 2 questions. Okay.
The first one for 4:45. When and where we get to play Undead?
When and where can we play Undead?
All right.
Yeah.
When we get it released, we have a publisher actually who approached us and asked that if they can publish this. And I said that let's get back to this once we have finished the game, and then you can test it. And if you still want to publish it, you are welcome. So obviously, I am hoping that it's not going to take 30 more years. I would prefer like something like a year or 2, but I have to be very careful not to overpromise anything.
Yeah. And second question was.
It's a little bit longer. With the big background being streamed, you can have endlessly long stream, or does it have a limit? Obviously, it's based on this one in cartridge. Can you have like a background parts as a modules, and then have it streamed generatively or randomly, like a random tricks in the stream? So basically, how long the levels can be?
This is something that should be asked from Pekka, but from the top of my head, I could imagine this being possible, because when you are like already, when these scenes are already made as pieces, there is nothing that would like prevent you from just having like a different parts and then randomizing them and then like playing them from the cartridge, because we play a lot of stuff we are going to play a lot of stuff from the cartridge. We're going to play animations and piece of code from the cartridge, because this game is extremely linear. It is possible to do so because you don't get as easily any surprising situations.
Okay. Last call for local questions.
Oh, we got 4 minutes.
There are no local questions. Nope.
Okay.
Okay. You mentioned that it might be that there might be other platforms for the game
Oh, yes.
someday.
Yes, I was actually hoping that we discussed with Pekka that we could make a Steam version of this and also a Nintendo Switch version because I still have a development kit rights for Nintendo Switch. But if it's so, I would really like this to look like still the original Commodore 64 version because if I started to upgrade the graphics, I would want to upgrade everything else and it will become a really huge project to do on your free time.
Okay, people, it's time for the last closing announcement from Miha.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you something about that.
Yeah.
This is for the people who know about my game industry comic. I am actually planning to make a little prequel for it, which is set in 1990. And we see the guys who are making the documentary, they actually have a small gig before they start a long journey. They have a small grant to go to Japan to make a documentary about their favorite Japanese arcade manufacturer. We might also see a little bit about the CAI when he has his unfortunate attempts for making his death metal band called Beer of Satan.
And for you Finnish people, please go to the library or bookshop, buy his album, Matkailua pelialalla album. Even if you go to library, he will get money from you people lending the book. He will get some bread.
Or beer or something.
Or beer. And for the non-Finns, two-sentence summary of the comic book, or the comic.
Oh yeah, I'm actually translating it to English. It can be found, it's called Journeys into Game Industry, and you can find it online by Googling Journeys into Game Industry. The first chapter is translated. I'm still hoping to translate the second chapter, but I've been busy with other things.
It's a great comic. Of course, it's not true. It's all fantasy. None of it has any base on reality, but it's a nice comic. You should read it. That's it.
Okay.
That's Miha Rinne. That's Kai. Thank you. Fantastic. We are back on time. We have a very, very action-filled day coming up. I have heard that there is huge amount of entries in the ZOO children competition. That will take a lot of time. We have also loads of demos, and it seems there will be even more demos. So actually tonight, the program, the live stream, everything, it probably will continue until very late in the night. But right now, let's have some coffee, a little break, and see what's coming up next in the program. Thank you for watching. We will be back.
check. The gaming semifinals, first game. The first we are gonna play Lumberjack, not the biathlon. I need top four players to the game base now. They are Jonni, Jutsdie, Juppe, and Jope. Well, everybody starts with J. So Jonni, Jutsdie, Juppe, and Jope. That's a mouthful. Come to the game base now.
One, two, 1, 2, 1, 2. Joo.
Hello people, in a couple of minutes we're going to start talking with the legend, the man, the myth, with Rockstar about how things used to be back in the days in the early cracking scene of Commodore 64. Please stay tuned and come to the not stage, but come to do it with us together, please. Thank you.